Welcome to another episode of Distory. My name is Kirk from Walrus Carp, and with me as always is Kate, the Disney Cicerone. Tonight on the episode, we are going to focus on the countries or pavilions that were never built in the Epcot World Showcase. But a lot of these were either put into concept art, concept models, or even billboards throughout Epcot itself. So, Kate, how are you doing?
I'm great. I just spent all day yesterday in Epcot, so I feel like I'm well prepared, at least in my brain, to be in Epcot.
Yeah. All right. Real quick diversion, but because it's topical, food and wine. What was the best? What was the worst? Just give me one and one. Quick. Not a lot of context.
I didn't eat everything there, but I actually really loved almost everything from the Ireland booth. Was really great. We loved almost everything from there.
That fisherman's pie is one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah, that was excellent. And I actually really liked the griddled cheese from Greece.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm so glad that came back.
And I did try the pickle milkshake, which it tasted kind of like ice cream with dill. So it didn't really have a pickle taste, more just dill. So I didn't love it. I kept shoving it towards Elliot, and then I kept drinking his fusion. The fusion drink that he had was actually really good. So
stunt food at its finest, pickle milkshakes coming to an Epcot near you.
It was something. It was an experience, and I had it, and then it's over.
It's successful in what it is, which is to grab attention, get eyeballs, and allow people to post it on social media. So
pretty much.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it solved. It did what it was meant to do, and everybody's saying it sounds like a big deal, and thank you for that. So
big deal.
It's not a big deal.
It was not kosher to drink that thing.
No. But anyway, we did enjoy a lot of the food there, and actually almost everything we had was pretty good. So
nice.
Highly recommend Food and Wine, International Food and Wine Festival at Epcot. But tonight we're going to talk about the countries in Epcot we never got.
Okay. I am confused about the amount of them. In some contexts, I feel like there's 10 or 11. How many did you find? Or did you not quantify them numerically on how many countries that they didn't build?
I have 18 with like an asterisk, like a few more that might kind of sort of be there. So I don't know if we have like a definite number.
Okay.
So we'll just say like somewhere 20-ish probably listing Epcot countries.
I like that, but I'm not laughing at you. I appreciate it, and I'm glad that you have more than I do. But I just got a comment saying that they relish the moment, and I agree.
I love it. So let's start off with the original model of Epcot that was from 1978. This was created for the International Commerce Congress, and then after that, they made a new model for the Epcot Preview Center that they put in the Walt Disney Story on Main Street. But this one from 1978 tells us quite a story. We won't go all the way back with all of the stuff from Epcot's history. I think like that might be a whole nother podcast at some point for how Epcot came to be. I think it's its own origin story. But I will say this particular model tells us an awful lot of things about World Showcase that I think are really important. And it's where we actually find a lot of these lost countries as well. Not all of them, but some of them. And the thing that I would really like to point out here is that this is where they combined the two different parks together. So the original plan was to have Future World be its own gate, its own park, and for the World Showcase of Nations to be its own park. And then what they did was they pushed the two models together, and they went over and they built some things and they put them together, and then they pitched it because they were afraid that it wasn't going to get sold to investors because there wasn't enough to them on their own. So that's why we pushed them together. I have a little quote from Marty Sklar. He said, "We originally started out to try to do two separate parks, one about countries around the world and the other about future ideas. And we couldn't get enough sponsorship to make that happen. So one day in 1976, Sklar and John Hench were scheduled to meet with Card Walker and Don Tatum, who had become Disney's chairman and CEO after Roy O. Disney passed away. The Imagineers had models for the two parks, but were in a quandary about presenting them, fearful both ideas would be summarily scrapped. We said to each other, unless we do something radical, we're not going to get this approved, Sklar recalled. So the solution proved to be both radical and simple. John Hench and I pushed the two models together, and it became one. They rushed to the model shop, which in just a couple of hours did a wonderful job of being able to make these things match, and it worked, and it's what's there today. So the combination of the two parks enabled Epcot to happen, and it gave us enough dynamic with different kinds of entertainment and enough sponsorships so that we could make the project viable. So that's how we ended up with these two very different concepts being together, because they really were going to be two separate parks. But I think my favorite part of this original model was this here. And I've been talking about this a lot recently because I'm just so excited by this. There's always that grand question about what is the first country that you start in Epcot. And I'm going to make the argument that it was always meant to be the circle that you see there, which is the American Adventure. And the American Adventure wasn't a pavilion. It was a jumping off point. It was a host country for the rest of the world. And that is obviously in a different place than what you normally see it. It's not across the lagoon like it is today. It was between Canada and Mexico, which makes sense because when you start in America, like we physically are, the two countries you would go to first would be either Canada or Mexico. And I will say...
That's wild. I never thought of that. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So even the name of it is a blend between the topic-centered names in Future World and the simple national names of the World Showcase Pavilion. So it was meant as a transition country. That's why it's American Adventure. It's not American Pavilion. So if anybody's ever wondered why it's not a pavilion, it has a different name, that would be why. And even the look of it was supposed to kind of blend them two together because it has this like futuristic look versus an actual country. But there's some speculation about why it moved. It's possible that because it was a host pavilion, it kind of awkwardly stood out too much from the others and it didn't look like America. And also the cost of constructing this entire elevated building probably was one of the reasons they moved it. But if you walk from Future World into World Showcase, the first thing you see is the American Adventure across the water. So I'll always say you start in America. That's the country you started in World Showcase. For that reason. Thank you very much. That is my soapbox. I'll get off of it now.
Now, do you have a personal preference in real world Mexico, Canada?
In real world?
It's a much hotly debated topic.
I'd actually have done both. I actually like starting from the international gateway and going to this first if I had to pick.
Yeah.
So, what is yours?
No, nobody says that. You know, that's like nobody literally says that. Mine would always be Canada. I would always go Canada. And it's just because it goes against the grain. If you go with everybody, you'll have longer lines, right? So normally everybody goes left is always right. And I understand that and I can appreciate that. However, when you start in Mexico, you're starting with everyone and you are going with the crowd. The only time you should really butt heads with everybody is somewhere around Japan/France. But realistically, those people don't get to France until like 4 or 5 o'clock if they're going around the world. So I just think there's less people if you do it that way.
Yeah, no, I usually do choose to go Canada when I have the choice between the two. But if I'm with somebody else and they're going Mexico, I'm not going to like fight them on it. It's fine. Well, we can.
You should. It's a fightable offense.
I do have just a little blurb. This is from I think it was from a pre-opening kind of pamphlet about what Epcot would be for investors. Mm-hmm. So this says, the American Adventure stands at the crossroads of Epcot Center, serving as the gateway to the World Showcase. Visitors will trace the story of the American people from the first step onto Plymouth Rock to the first step to the moon. Three of America's greatest philosophers, Benjamin Franklin, Mark Twain, and Will Rogers, will lead a cast of performers brought to life through the Disney audio animatronics process of three-dimensional animation. So they still have the idea of, the American Adventure show, but the actual, pavilion, the American Adventure, was in a completely different location. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would say it's even though it's we did get America, we didn't quite get it as it was originally planned. So I'm kind of quasi including that.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We definitely don't have it the same as what it was intended. Doesn't even look like remotely close.
No.
By the way, there's this I found a handful of primary sources. We need to get a copy of Walt Disney's Epcot Center, Creating the New World of Tomorrow. It was published in 1982, and it's amazing, some of the pictures.
Was that on my list?
Do you, as like a list of things to get?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't own it yet, but
It looks unbelievable. I mean, like the pictures of like all the pavilions, but then there's also information about like equatorial Africa that was supposed to happen. So it goes through all the rumored ones as well, which is sick.
Yeah.
Like I wish somebody scanned this whole entire thing.
Well, should we talk from 1982? We did have, in the opening of Epcot, we only had 9 pavilions in the World Showcase when it opened in 1982. And that was Mexico, China, Germany, Italy, the U.S., if we can call it a pavilion, Japan, France, United Kingdom, and Canada. So that was our World Showcase. It was not quite as, I want to say it's not quite as robust as what we have now, but actually there's only been 2 more since then. So, and most countries were not financed by any actual country, but by businesses within those countries. So the only country that actually financed their pavilion was Morocco. So for a long time, they were the only country that got a flag that flew outside of their country because they were the ones that paid to finance it. That's from Marty Sklar. Because the country's king, actually, the Kingdom of Morocco, was sponsored by the king.
Yeah, they actually sent over the royal architect to help build and design the pavilion itself. That's why it looks so authentic.
Yeah, and they also had Harper Goff, who worked, of course, on the movie set of Casablanca. So, it has to be amazing, right? So that's all the kind of preamble stuff I have before we dig into countries. I don't know if you have anything else you want to share before we dig in.
I am not going to preamble anymore.
It's just me. Well, I've been talking for a while. I think what we're going to do is we're going to each kind of pick a country and then we'll kind of present anything that we have on that country, because some of them have a lot and some of them don't have much at all.
Yeah. So, do we want to list? So your list has a few more than me. So I'm just going to list off the ones that I have. Or actually, you know what? Yours is a more complete list. Do you want to just say yours? The ones that we're supposed to build? Do you have that in a list form or no?
I do have it in a list. Do we want to give the list now, or do we want to just go one at a time?
No, I want everybody to know what's coming up. It's a preview, but they still need to know what happened in that or what was planned.
Okay. I have Austria/New Zealand, United Arab Emirates, Spain, Costa Rica, Russia, Israel, Iran, Switzerland, Denmark, Venezuela, Philippines, Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, Holland, Brazil, Poland, South Korea, and Equatorial Africa. Give or take a few extra handful ones that we can talk about at the end. But that's the main list I have.
It's unreal. I love the fact that there were so many more Asian countries that were supposed to be represented, and
South America.
Yeah,
too.
and yeah, I mean also Africa is dramatically underrepresented now. Do you know what I mean? You have Morocco, and you have,
but it's got its own kind of like section over there in Animal Kingdom, which we can talk about when we get to Equatorial Africa. Okay.
Whatever.
Do we want to start at the top of the list with Australia?
Sure. Let's see. I don't know if I have anything for Australia. You went alphabetical. We don't talk about these things ahead of time, kids. I don't. Go for it. Go for Australia.
I actually don't have hardly anything on this. I searched for a very long time, but I do have the model. This came from Harper Goff's like personal photo album. So you can actually see this is a photo of his photo.
Oh yeah, it was Sydney Opera House.
So it was in a Sydney Opera House, so it kind of jut out into the water of the center of the World Showcase. And so yeah, it was just the Sydney Opera House, and then I believe like New Zealand was kind of like attached to it as well. It was a combination of Australia and New Zealand. But that's the most of what I have for Australia. There's very little information. I also have like a back view of it. You can see the back of it.
The backside of opera.
So this was for that 1978 model. So as we go, if we have additional information for why they never happened, some of them we don't have any reasons why. Majority of them probably just didn't get funding or sponsorship, and so it was just a non-starter from there. But there's a few that have some other reasons why they weren't added.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing this one just didn't get sponsorship.
All right, shoot the next one. What we got? I'm just going to use your list because I can jump around easier than you can.
Alrighty. United Arab Emirates is the next one. And this one was a late 1970s concept. It would have featured a magic carpet ride, which, how fun is that? That's like eons before Aladdin came out. So we would have had a magic carpet ride. And then also there would be a show exploring how the Middle East shaped the development of early civilizations and advances in science. So what Kirk's showing you there is that it's like an Arab pavilion that they were going to make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really pretty. I mean, I love the concept of, we get a magic carpet right now multiple times. Fill Magic. They also have, they talk about it briefly in Morocco for a hot second. And then, we also have it at the magic carpets of Aladdin as well. So we do get it.
I think I have a picture, excuse me. I think I have a picture of the pavilion as well. I want to say it's this one that has this big, it was really hard to tell what these were. I'm not going to lie. So this is my best guess for what Morocco would have been. And it's got this big, I think it's a tent in the middle that's kind of like a marketplace.
Yeah, it's probably like a bazaar.
Not Morocco, sorry. This is United Arab Emirates is what this is.
UAE.
It would be a marketplace in the center of that pavilion. But I don't have very many other photos. That's all I got.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Like I said, some of these countries have not very much on them, but they're around.
Next
is Spain. Spain is up next.
Spain, the worst charcuterie I've had ever in Disney. I'm
so glad I didn't get it, knowing that.
It's horrendous. It's mushy, squish ball, disgusting. Like, it's not good at all, and it's expensive. So,
yeah.
So I have for Spain's major thing, of course, would have been to serve tapas and sangria, and its main attraction would be a dark ride featuring the nation's landmarks and the country's traditions and culture. However, the one thing I want to kind of point out here is if you do really like Spanish tapas and sangria, both of those currently exist over at Coronado Springs. So Coronado Springs has a sangria course that you can take at Three Bridges, and it's a blending sangria course, and then you get to, of course, consume while you're enjoying that. And then if you like tapas, you can go upstairs and either go to the Dahlia or Toledo. Either or both serve some really nice Spanish-flavored foods. If you're into Spanish cuisine, don't get it at Food and Wine. Get it at Coronado Springs, which actually has really fantastic food. Very underrated for its food.
Yeah, for sure. And this is some concept art of Spain. I actually really love this. I don't know if it's a watercolor. I want to say it's more of it's for sure a painting, but this is some concept art. There's a boat in the front, which is fairly common of most countries around the world. Usually in their concept art, they would have featured a boat out front that reflected their nation. We lost a little bit of that as time went on. We don't see quite as many boats as we used to. But this is what Spain would look like. And I did have a sign. There was a sign up that had a few of like coming attractions to World Showcase. And
yeah, I saw that one.
One of them. So I have the text from that, and it says, "Take a spectacular journey through Spain by film to little-known and out-of-the-way vacation Edens. A ride attraction captures the country's passionate heritage and spirit in her arts. In a waterside restaurant, indulge in tapas or Spanish-style finger foods, a blend of varied ingredients, but suitable to simple tastes. and browse the marketplaces of striking contrast from Pueblo village to aristocratic opulence. That's what is said for Spain.
I really like, so I've been to Spain. It's one of the few countries I've actually visited in the world. And I fell in love in Sevilla with tortilla de España, which is like basically an egg potato casserole. It's fantastic. And they make it everywhere. Everybody's like slightly different. The other thing that they make is patatas bravas, which is like a crisped up fingerling kind of style potato with almost like smoked paprika on it. It's fantastic. So I could have only imagined that this tapa style restaurant would have been fantastic.
Yeah, that sounds really good. So I think it would have been amazing.
Well, we didn't get it. So
another waterside restaurant. Yeah, I know. Moving on.
I had no idea if it was water or, because it seems like a lot of these are water-based attractions, or if it was going to be like another Omnimover-esque. I
don't have anything specific on it. I did see that Spain kind of came and went as a concept like multiple times, so it wasn't just once. And it seemed like it was really like, this is coming to World Showcase, and then it didn't, So it was one of those three, the Equatorial Africa, Israel, and Spain were really like advertised. They had signs up. Yeah. They were like making it, and then it didn't. And what I have a note for why it wasn't created was lack of funding. So again, it came down to the dollars and cents, kids. That's why
money.
I would kind of feel though like Morocco, we get kind of like the tapas experience. Like there's like small plates of stuff. It's obviously different cuisine, but
well, if you think about Morocco and Spain, they share a lot of cultural significance together because they're massive trading partners through the Strait of Gibraltar. It's actually, I've been to Morocco too, coming from that Spanish trip, and we literally took a high-speed boat across. And this was not like a tiny high-speed boat. This was like a massive one that could hold thousands of people, and chartered them daily. And yeah, went into Morocco, and yeah, I mean, it's just very unique. But I will say Spain was my favorite European country that I've been to, but I haven't been to that many. So, but Spain was fantastic.
I think Italy was my favorite. Venice in particular was my favorite city because everywhere in that city is gorgeous, just everywhere. But Paris is a close second. I do really love Paris.
I had to wear pants to get a Bellini in Venice. So
why would you wear pants?
You have to wear. You can't wear shorts because only. First of all, this place, this like famous bar that makes. No. This famous bar that like invented the Bellini, which is like the most simplest drink ever, right? But it's like I don't even think they let. Yeah, I don't even think they let women in the bar. It's ridiculous. And like I had to wear pants to get in, and my dad's like, "Well, we have to go," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Why are there a bunch of dudes wearing long pants in the middle of the summer, drinking a bunch of peach Bellinis? Like, what are we doing here?
Because they've got style.
Just trust me, the place reeked. I don't think it had any style, but there was heritage there and all that stuff. Italy was weird. I had a very weird night once. What is her name? Who's the lady from Fast and the Furious? Rodriguez. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, the lady.
Somebody help me out.
Where are we going with this?
No, I have to sift this story because you got me on this tangent of Italy. I went to this nightclub. It was called Central Park, and it's in Firenze. Firenze is Florence, and so Florence, Italy. I liked Florence. Florence was really cool. Michelle Rodriguez is hanging out, and all they're playing this like weird Euro techno, like, and nobody's dancing. This is an outdoor open club or discoteca, and Michelle Rodriguez is there, and Fast and the Furious 2 just came out, and I'm like, what is happening? And there's nobody around her. She has no entourage. There's only like one other person, and I'm like, dude, aren't you from New Jersey? And she was like, yeah, I'm from New Jersey, and I was like, this is so weird. Like, of all places to see her. And then they played Ace of Base, and then they danced for everybody, came there and everywhere, and started playing. Everybody's dancing to Ace of Base, and I'm like, this is not the 90s, but I don't know what is happening. It was one of the weirdest things in my life.
Flash mob.
I swear, all of these things happened. Like, this is a true story. My sister was there.
It wasn't a dream. Like,
It was not. My sister was there, and she will vouch for me. And listen, my sister wouldn't lie because there's no benefit for her. But yeah, it was the one about all that she wants is another baby gone tomorrow. That was, everybody was like. Anyway, it's a weird place.
Yeah, it is. It's true. No, I can't. If we're on a tangent, I'm going to go on my tangent, and then we can go back to the countries. So, so you met a celebrity in a weird place. I also met a celebrity in a weird place. I think I told you guys this. I might have maybe not told you that we were told it. Elliot went to grad school for his master's in the University of Limerick, and he plays the uilleann pipe. So he plays the Irish bagpipe. So they needed singers and they needed an Irish bagpipe player for like a project. And so we're like, okay, like we'll do it. Sure. Like I was in the choir there. And so we go and drive out to this like coastal town. We find out that the project is they're dedicating a statue of the actor Richard Harris playing racquetball in a seaside town in Ireland. And who's going to dedicate it is Russell Crowe was going to dedicate the statue. So we're at this tiny little coastal town in Ireland on the coast, and it's overlooking the sea is this Richard Harris playing racquetball in this bronze statue. And they put up this flatbed truck, and I swear like half of Ireland has come to see Russell Crowe. So we're like, we go and meet him at the pub. He's sitting down, and everybody in Ireland is buying him a Guinness, right? So he's like drinking a lot because he's trying to be kind, you know? And he was really nice. He introduced himself to me, which was really kind. But it was, and then we go and do this rehearsal, and we're singing this song that Russell Crowe wrote for Richard Harris. I guess it was like his mentor or something in the actor world. And I'm looking at Elliot, I'm like, what is happening here? And so then they have us perform this on this flatbed truck with all of Ireland and all of the press, like RTE in Ireland is like right there. And we're just like, I'm like up there, I'm like, I'm taking a picture. I didn't care if I'm on stage. I'm like, nobody's going to believe me that we did this. So we dedicated a statue of Richard Harris playing racquetball by playing and singing music with Russell Crowe on a flatbed truck and an Irish.
The truth is stranger than fiction, kid.
I know. Such a weird moment in our lives. But,
that is.
Yeah.
Was this before or after Gladiator came out?
This was way after. This was like 2006. So,
oh man,
yeah.
He was like, he needed that gig.
He stayed in like the local castle was like his like hotel. And so like some friends of ours went and hung out with him afterwards, and we're just like, we're not cool enough to do that. So we're going to go back to our tiny little place that they got for us to stay. It didn't have any like heat. It was great. Anyway, tangent. Anyways, we got to keep moving because we have more countries to get.
Next.
So I'm going to move us along. Thanks everyone for coming on our tangent with us. We're going to go to Russia.
You don't have to explain to them.
Next.
You don't have to explain to them. You could just go on the tangent. Like, that's what this is. Like, you don't have to apologize for having fun and giving up.
I have to apologize. I am an adult child of divorce, and everything is my fault. I have to apologize for everything. Okay.
Okay. Now I feel sorry.
Let's go to Russia, shall we?
Please. Back in the USSR.
So I don't have a ton on Russia either. There are some countries I do, I promise. But yeah, we have the same photo. Look at us go. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, this is the only known photo that I have of Russia. It was actually planned for the Phase 2 expansion of Epcot, and obviously never happened. It featured the Kremlin in Moscow and St. Basil's
Cathedral.
Basil's Cathedral. I don't have much more than that. I just know that it was canceled after the breakup of the Soviet Union in the early 90s. So this one wasn't necessarily financial, but more of a social political reason.
Well, it's always tough to break up, it's hard to do.
This is interesting. Like, you would think the Soviet Union, like how nervous everybody was about, the Red Scare and all those kinds of things, you would think that they would not want that. But by that point in history,
considering Walt Disney was anti-communist as it gets and very vocal about it, it's kind of shocking that they would even think that path. But yeah, it was St. Basil's Cathedral. There was supposed to be some sort of Kremlin nod as well. But yeah, end up getting canceled.
Yeah.
Next.
Costa Rica's up next.
Costa Rica, it's really pretty looking.
Mm-hmm. So this one was planned in 1979. I love how we have all the same photos because that's the only photo that exists.
Yeah. What are they doing? Just your classic Costa Rican suspenders, child. Yes.
So this was planned in 1979, and it would have drawn influences from San Juan. Would feature a large crystal greenhouse containing native tropical plants to the country, along with recreated waterfalls and an abundant habitat comprised of different exotic bird species, which is not unlike, if you think about it, that's not unlike what was going to be in Disneyland when they had the botanical gardens that was going to be in Disneyland.
Yeah, I was
Adventureland.
I was thinking that exact thing when we were talking and doing the plant day, because that's the exact in fact that you were talking about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It also would have featured an open-air market / shopping and a quick service restaurant, but I don't have any information, I'm guessing, of Costa Rican food, which would have been amazing to have. Do you have anything additional to that?
No, except for I know that Costa Rica lives by the concept of pura vida, which is simple life. They're still all about that.
Get behind that.
Yeah.
I love that. I have watched, thousands of episodes of International House Hunters, so I know all about that way of living.
Dude, I'm gonna have to move to Costa Rica to be able to buy a house anyway. So it ain't happening in the United States.
It's easy. Yeah, it's bad out there. All right, moving on.
Yeah, what do we got next?
Switzerland is up next, and this one's actually really fun. Not that the other one wasn't. So Switzerland is a little bit different than some of these other ones. It was led by Disney's desire to build an East Coast version of the Matterhorn bobsled attraction that we have in Disneyland. It would have been between Germany and Italy is where it would have landed. So the place where you see the trains running at Epcot, right about in that area is where this would have been. It would feature a quaint Swiss village, candy shop, a clock shop, a wood shop, clothing store, tourism center, a restaurant, and a bobsled-themed roller coaster similar to the Disneyland one, but not an exact copy. It would have taken some elements from Walt Disney World's Space Mountain as well in that roller coaster design, and they had a couple different storylines for the coaster's theme, but none of it was ever finalized. But how amazing would it have been to have a roller coaster Matterhorn in Disney World?
Yeah, not the only canceled country roller coaster, because we had talked about in a previous episode that Mount Fuji roller coaster as well that would have shown up in Japan. So the one thing, though, I did find out in my research is that this Matterhorn mountain was going to smell like raclette, and I'm not a big fan of that. I
will ride it all day.
Oh, you get the raclette? I can't. It's so gross. Oh, it smells so bad.
It's so soothing to watch them. So if those of you don't know, it's a big Swiss cheese meal that they put under this warmer, and then they tilt it to the side and they scrape off the top layer that's melty, and it slides into your dish, and it's so good. It's delicious.
It congeals too quick. That would be my only thing. Is it turns into a thick paste that is not. It's not gooey melty anymore very, very quickly, which is kind of shocking because it's so hot.
Fair enough. That's why I don't put it super high on the food list. Also, the bread they give you with it, there's
trash
of it for the little bit of cheese, and it's super dry. It's
it's the worst bread.
Just give me more potatoes. Don't give me
potatoes. Now you're talking. You're speaking my language.
I had 3 potatoes. I was like, what is this?
It's not enough potatoes. And let's be honest, potatoes are even cheaper than bread. Potatoes are very, very cheap. They're one of the cheapest, most staple foods ever.
Yeah. Do you have anything else for Switzerland? Oh, I know why it wasn't created, but you have anything else before that?
I do not.
Okay. So it wasn't created. So Disney was in negotiations with the Swiss government for a long time. But in 1987, those negotiations fell apart and Disney wasn't able to secure funding from a commercial sponsor. But they did have some very elaborate coming soon write-ups in 1984 and 1985 to show what could have been. And that's why we have a little bit more information about it than some of the other countries. Because it was
Kind of reminds me of D23. Hey, you're going to get all this stuff. Sorry.
Ouch.
Dude, I honestly, it's getting to the point where it's laughable. And like, I love Disney. I love it. But like, we like, can you please bring back Figment? Like, you've been talking about this Figment puppet. Like, just bring him out, bro. Like, he's back there. Like, I get the Hatbox Ghost is going to take some time to plug in, which, by the way, they're putting by the endless hallway, which is a whole other thing before you say out.
What are they doing? What are they doing? Why? Why would they be doing that?
Somebody said that it has something to do with the film and his responsibility in the film and where he's located in the film. And I'm like, how about the fact that we don't see any ghosts until Leota makes them materialize in front of our eyes? So what are you doing?
He was always meant to be in the attic. So at least Disneyland, he's like adjacent to the attic. He's like right outside it. He's on the other space wall from where he should have been. You have space for him there.
We have space.
I'm getting all heated about the Hatbox Ghost. I'm mad.
I don't blame you, as you should. As you should.
What are we doing here?
That's how I feel. I mean, listen, I'm glad we have them, whatever, and they're not museums, but like let's
at least keep the storyline straight. That's like keep the storyline how it should, like, of the attraction, the storyline of the attraction. I can't. We'll be here all night debating this.
I'm excited to see the Hatbox Ghost, though. Let's just say that. Yes. It's a haunted mansion with a Hatbox Ghost is better than one without, regardless of where it's placed.
I guess so. Your guys' light also has been out forever on the chair that's in the endless hallway. Like, yeah,
why don't we talk about all the other problems, Kate? Like, we don't have how much time do you have?
Like the Duke and the Duchess and the Mummy that's been MIA for like a year. Like
the Mummy, they have like new merch with the Mummy on it all the time, and I'm like, can we please tell the merch people that he doesn't exist and he's not coming back? So don't worry about it. It's like one of the best metaphorical gags, and yet gone.
Yeah. Okay, we got to keep going. We got more countries. Yeah. Let's do Israel.
Movie ends. Israel, yeah.
Israel. I've got a couple for Israel, actually.
Okay.
I have like a little clipping from it. You've got a sign. I've got the original model. So this is the model of what Israel would have looked like. Old meets the new in the land of the Bible.
Which, I mean, for all intents and purposes, we did get, but what did they call that? It's like Bible Land or something. In Orlando, there was a giant theme park that was made, a Holy Land. It was called Holy Land. So it did exist. It just wasn't a Disney park.
Yeah, here's a really great one of this kind of a alleyway in Israel as well. Holy Land experience. Yes. So, Marty Sklar said, I was on a trip to Israel and Herb Ryman did a sketch of a street in Jerusalem that we were going to do. I think that's what this is. We were going to do an outdoor amphitheater like Caesarea. All those things would have been great. And I do have a little, like he showed you the sign and we said these are ones that are coming to World Showcase. So this was really one that was in production. And I have a clipping of what it would have been here. So, the state of Israel. On the shores of the Israeli pavilion, the ruins of an ancient minaret serves as an information center. This blending of historical and commercial elements showcases modern Israel throughout the pavilion. Olive and cypress trees line the entrance and provide shade for buildings and traveler alike. Along one portion of the front, a casual outdoor eating area provides guests with a place to enjoy people-watching and delicatessen-type foods. Opposite from here, a unique convenience shop offers its visitors a selection of native publications, books, and film. Beyond the pavilion's entrance, the rising walkways lead travelers to a courtyard setting with shops clustered around the perimeter. The bizarre atmosphere of a marketplace in Israel permeates the interior and exterior of these shops. Tapestries, custom wood and brass items, jewelry, fashion apparel, and quality gifts provide guests with a small piece of Israel to take home as a remembrance of their experience. The facades of these buildings reflect the rich balance of new and old. Through an archway in the court, guests arrive at the last element of the pavilion, a covered amphitheater characterized after the theater at Caesarea. I think I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. Here, the famous skills of Israeli musicians will be demonstrated in performances of classical and traditional folk music. So that would have been the Israel Pavilion.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I like the concept of it. Also, just random fun fact about world culture. A minaret is usually a tower used for prayer calling. Typically more in Muslim countries because of like imams typically are calling for prayer. Was that 5 times? I got to brush up on Islamic history. Yeah. But again, this one uniquely not due to funding, but due to geopolitical, they decided to go against due to there was a lot of instability in that area of the world. So they decided against it.
Yep. It did come back in the Millennium Pavilion in right around the year 2000. So it was 1999 to 2001. We saw this Millennium Pavilion come back to Epcot, where they did showcase a whole bunch of like potential countries or countries that they thought about in the past. And in that one, they had an idea of a simulator movie ride called Journey to Jerusalem, and also a virtual tour of historic holy sites within the city. So Israel also showed up there at the Millennium Pavilion as well.
Cool. We do get Israel for Festival of the Holidays, which I think is really cool. That always shows up every year. And hands down, the best cookie last year was what do they call that? They call it different, but it's a New York black and white cookie. It's delicious. It's like almost got like a little bit of a lemon flavor to it. Fantastic.
That sounds good.
But the Israel and the character performer that's there who tells the story of Hanukkah is fantastic. He's like a musician, singer, and does the story. It's awesome.
Oh, that's lovely. I love that. Mm-hmm. Should we move on to Iran? Iran is our next country. I don't think I have a ton of information about when they were planning it, but it would have had a dark ride through Persian history and a bazaar style shopping plaza, which is what Kirk is showing you there in the concept art. And then it would have shown some of Persian history. So guests would have been transported inside a replica of the Golestan Palace. I think is how you say that. And it's also worth mentioning here that the Magic Kingdom was going to have a Persian-themed resort at one point in time. That's what they were calling it, at least. Back when the Magic Kingdom was being designed in the 1960s. So, I think they took a few elements of that when they were making this. That resort also obviously never got made around the lagoon, largely because of the instability of the ground around the Seven Seas Lagoon. But that's why it's called the Seven Seas Lagoon, because they were going to have a resort from each of the seven seas around it. And they don't, because of the sinkholes in the Florida swampland.
It's awesome. We have a lot of things that you have to worry about here in Florida. One of them happens to be wherever you could walk, you might fall into a void in the earth.
Yeah, it's a dangerous place. It's a lawless land.
It's a lawless, swampy bog, but I love it.
Do you want to talk about why it wasn't created? Do you have notes on that?
I only have that in 1979, the Shah of Iran was overthrown. So that led to the cancellation. I don't know if there's anything more, but
so
political tensions.
Yeah, Disney executive Jack Lindquist made a whole bunch of trips to Iran and the Philippines in some failed attempts to get each country's commitment to support Epcot pavilions. And though he did actually finally meet with the Shah of Iran, he was overthrown just a few weeks after Lindquist left the country. So he had success meeting him, and then it didn't work out. So yes, more political than anything else, but also financial, because nobody was going to finance it at that point. So, both.
Next.
Next, I think we need to talk about, let's talk about Scandinavia and then into Denmark, because I think they're connected.
I do not have Scandinavia, but I do have Denmark.
I'm trying to find my Scandinavian notes here. Scandinavian Pavilion. So the hope was that they would draw in multiple nations in the Scandinavian area so that they could draw in more sponsors. But that kind of fell through. So I have just the pavilion for it. And then they did end up getting Norway.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they still lucked out, Sorry, Sweden and Finland, but, Norway's still there.
Yeah, Norway was the only one that was willing to invest in it. So,
by the way, gave us like the best dark ride ever in Epcot for the longest time.
Yeah, Sea Venture. It was originally called Sea Venture, and then they changed the name right before they opened it. Actually, I think I might have a picture of that. So they had literally the sign up on the building that said Sea Venture, and then they changed it to Maelstrom. Here, see, it says Sea Venture.
Why did they not want Sea Venture?
That I haven't been able to figure out yet. All I did was find this picture and then like read about that it was called Sea Venture and changed. So I'm not sure why, but there must have been a reason. So that would be Maelstrom, of course, as Sea Venture became Maelstrom. But for the Scandinavian Pavilion, would have had shops and restaurants, regional architecture, natural wonders would be highlighted, and a dark water ride, which was Sea Venture that became Maelstrom. So eventually they just kind of like reworked it and made it just into Norway because they were the only ones that really wanted to invest. But this is what it would have looked like had we had more countries in the Scandinavian Pavilion. And you still see that old church, the stave church in the center there. Was still
that looks so cool.
I'm so lame. Before that, though, before we had Scandinavia, there was one that they were going to do before that, which I think is actually super fun. It was going to be Denmark. This was in the mid-1990s. No, sorry, this must have been after. So they had the potential new country of Denmark. They were going to feature Tivoli Gardens.
Which we know Tivoli Gardens was integral to designing Disneyland as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see there's some of it over here. And I'm excited because I get to go to it in a couple months. So that was in Copenhagen. And then they had a carousel, a Ferris wheel, and they were going to have a Lego-themed boat ride. Like, how cool is that? So I looked up, like, when Legoland was starting to be built, and it was, like, way after this. So people were asking me, was it because they were going to build Legoland? Like, maybe they had some ideas that they might be building it.
I don't know. I mean, a better question would be, what's the oldest Disney Lego set, and were they already making them for the Magic Kingdom? Do you know what I mean? Or from Disney IP and Mickey Mouse, like prior to this, and then they saw like a natural licensing partnership, which is probably where things were headed.
Yeah.
And also, Legoland is in the space of the oldest themed attraction in all of Florida, which was Cypress Gardens, which was like this beautiful garden with waterways through it. And then afterwards, they started building attractions, like physical attractions. And right now they have a dinosaur-themed wooden roller coaster. That was originally roller skates that used to be like the 2x2s, not like roller blades, but that was called like the roller skate coaster back in the day.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting.
But literally, they bought Cypress Gardens, which they should have never done, to be honest with you. Legoland is in a precarious place. They should have just built somewhere new instead of buying. Like, you can tell when a place has bought and then like kind of made their own thing around it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can see that with the legacy of that coaster, you're like, it's kind of like they're just shoehorning in. But I do really, really love Legoland's original IP. Like, Lego Movie World is one of the best themed lands in any theme park in Florida. It's outrageously good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, this Denmark was never created, so we never got the Lego-themed ride in Epcot. But that would be kind of cool if we had. But it's just inadequate sponsorship. Again, it came down to money. So
go ride the Battle of Bricksburg or the Pirate River Cruise if you need to have some Lego boats. The Pirate River Cruise is really cool because it goes through Cypress Gardens, and it's not on a track. Like, it's literally piloted by people.
Yeah. That's pretty neat. Moving on.
Next.
Let's do Venezuela. So
Venezuela looks like Blade Runner. Maybe that's just me, but it looks like Blade Runner, and I would be so stoked if they actually did something like cool like this. It's like a rolling metropolis.
So this was an early 80s concept. Disney announced plans for Venezuela Pavilion, which would have brought South America to Epcot. It would have an aerial tram through the lush forest.
You can see up here, and then there's another car right there in the concept art.
And it would have had a large waterfall at the back of it as well, which I believe was projected. It was a projected waterfall, not like an actual real one. But
you're just projecting that waterfall on me, okay? You know.
I do have a quote from Alan Coates, who is Claude Coates' son, who Alan Coates also worked at Imagineering, said, "I jump-started development on the Venezuela Pavilion with initial research on the country. Negotiation had been ongoing with several nations, and the feeling was that it was a priority to include at least one country from the Southern Hemisphere. Brazil and Venezuela had shown interest in World Showcase participation. Using the WED Research Library, I assembled a series of storybooks, actually more like subject boards on the history, culture, architecture, natural resources, festivals, whatever I could come up with as a sort of snapshot of the country. The overall idea for the showcase pavilions was to give the visitor a feeling of having been to that country, if only briefly to taste the food, listen to the music, purchase merchandise, and meet some of the young people from the nation who would be working there. Unfortunately, Venezuela, the negotiations with the Venezuelan government actually fell through, and that is why we never got that pavilion." Kind of like, I feel like there's like not a happy ending to all of these, which is making me bummed out.
Well, I mean, it's either, think about this for a second, right? Like, we're not talking about stories. We're talking about physical, real spaces. So real talk, they have governments, they have legislation, they have ruling powers that are there or not there, or turmoil or conflict. All of those things exist in real life, and that's the major thing that stopped most of these, or financial, which financial hits easier and is softer than geopolitical ones.
Yeah, and in the original prospectus for Epcot, they said that they wanted between 10 to 30 countries in World Showcase. And we have 11. We have 11, so we're within that range, just on the low end of that range.
Like, it's a lot.
30 would have been a lot. But the original layout for it looked a lot different, which we won't get into all of this right now, but it looked different. It looked a lot more like Communicore with little wedges. So they would have been able to jam 30 countries in.
That's like when they open up the convention, World Showplace, not to be confused with the World Showcase, and they just dump like 6 countries in there. They used to do that all the time. Like during COVID, for some reason, they used that convention hall all the time rather than building cabins and booths. It's weird.
Yeah. But I think that's how they would have fit 30 in there, is because they would have given them all equal, like, store frontage, so to speak, so that all the countries were equal. And then the pavilions would get better, like bigger towards the back, kind of like a pie. Think of like a wedge of a pie. And all the countries were shaped like that. So that's all I have for Venezuela. Do you have anything else for that country?
No, but I just feel like this is apropos for right now, and I don't want to lose it while I still have it up.
Yeah.
When you think about like where these countries, and you just showed the picture of wedging. Hang on, let me do this so I can make it bigger.
Wedging.
If you look at the countries, right? So if you're listening to this, Mexico, Norway, China, and then there's Refreshment Port is one, which is where Africa kind of is represented. You can see all of these different pad sites. Like there's a pad site between Germany and Italy. There's a pad site between Japan and Morocco. There's a pad site behind the International Gateway and the UK. And if you actually look at each one of these areas too, like Italy has room to build if they ever wanted to do a Snow White themed, or not Italy, where am I looking? Germany. Germany actually has area in the back if they want to build an attraction back there. We knew that one was supposed to be built there, but Italy has a spot. Like if they want to do something with Pinocchio, they could do that there. So there is room to grow, and we know that this can get utilized because there's France, and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure led to using of a pad site and expansion. So to me, in my head, I go, well, there is hope that maybe we get some sort, maybe not new countries anytime soon, but utilization of the pad sites to make Epcot a little bit more robust. If they are going to, I know they are cost cutting. So that D23 blue sky, $11 billion over the course of 10 years injected into the parks in Orlando, that is more likely going to be closer to like $3 billion, which means that we're probably getting maybe 2 new e-tickets and then lots of little drips and drabs. And maybe that's 4 attractions over the next decade, with 2 being majors and 1 being a re-theme of Tiana's. Do you know what I mean?
Which is crazy when you think of like all of Disneyland was built in a year, but yeah, it takes us like so long to get everything else. And it's not only financial. I think financial is part of the picture. Some of it is red tape. Some of it is, like government red tape. Some of it is creativity. It takes a long time to get everybody on board. Sometimes it's permitting. There's all this kind of like stuff that is in there. Why it takes so long these days, where Walt just kind of did what he wanted back in 1955.
All right, I'm going to say something that's slightly controversial. I disagree with the concept of permitting, at least. And this is not like a knock on you or your statements. But when you see that Epic Universe broke ground no more than 10 miles away from Disney World, who basically still operates Reedy Creek District on their own volition, who writes their own permits and signs those, and they're getting that up and running with less than like 3 years construction time, an entire new park. I just go, man, they did Velocicoaster in like 10 months. Do you know what I mean?
They could figure it out and do it. I think it's just, I think
people are afraid to take risks. I feel like they're afraid to take risks anymore. And I think creativity, I don't think the creative people are afraid to take risks. I think shareholder-focused leadership is not stepping out of and into the guest experience first, because creative people want to make all this stuff. Like, they're never the ones that are the hold-up unless there's arguments over ideas, and then usually they just shift into a new idea or someone circumvents and says, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
I 100% agree that it's not necessarily the creatives that are holding up the process.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of red tape internally too with Disney. There's so many departments that things have to go through for approval that it can bog down the whole system, where something like somebody can come up with a really creative idea, but it has to go through all of these levels of approval, has to come all the way back to production. It's not nearly as simple as it was back in the 1950s when the Imagineers were just kind of like having fun and making whatever they felt like. It's so much more complicated because of all of their leadership and the rules and restrictions that are in place now. From what I think
they spread themselves a little too thin by investing in multiple media outlets. Like the purchase of Fox really hurt them because they didn't know how to operate it, but they knew they wanted to own it. So like there's things that make sense for the company from a creative standpoint. Things like owning Star Wars was a fantastic, owning Marvel, fantastic acquisitions. Like they were huge money drivers, great IP to continue on to, legacy IP to build upon. But I feel like they overextended themselves on certain things, and we're feeling that burden right now,
Yeah. No,
it's kind of interesting too, because the leadership that was in place that did all those acquisitions and was being touted as like a hero went away, and you had this villainized leader, and then now you bring back the person who set up all of the chain of events. This is like why when leadership leaves a company on like good terms, you're like, oh man, they were amazing. But yet all of their decisions will have ramifications for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. Even when Disney passed, had ramifications for how the company would look at attractions for the next 2 decades,
Yeah.
And even animation, it was like, oh, we need to just do everything that was already in place that Walt wanted to do,
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So,
Well, yeah, no, I agree. Shall we finish up
Next.
the other countries? We got a couple more. Much as I love going on rabbit trails, and I think they're needed. So, I have Taiwan, but I don't have
I have nothing.
Taiwan.
I have nothing on Taiwan.
This is from Harper Goff's photo book again. I think is there's from this original model from 1978. It's right next to the Sydney Opera House, and there's like hardly anything. Do you see in the water there?
Oh yeah.
So that country all the way back there, the pagoda, and then
The thatched house roof right there. Mm-hmm.
That's about all I got on Taiwan. That's it. That's all.
Next.
But it was there. It did exist in this original model, at least. And also for the Philippines, that was another one where I mentioned Jacqueline Quist went, and he waited 10 days before meeting with Imelda Marcos, who's the wife of the president of the Philippines. But the long wait was fruitless because he never ended up getting approval for that. I don't even have any concept art for the Philippines.
Philippines would have been awesome too, because the food is outrageously good. I would love that.
Yeah. And it's a part of the country that I think really could have some more representation in the World Showcase, or part of the world, I should say, that needs more representation in the World Showcase. So that I have the Taiwan and Philippines, but I think now we have finally arrived at Equatorial Africa. I think is our and this one has a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So Equatorial Africa again was one of those ones that had signs up front for this is coming soon, and we still do see a little bit of area in the World Showcase that looks like it should be there, and that is where it was going to be, is in that little corner. What is that next to China, and what's on the other side of that?
Germany.
So Equatorial Africa Pavilion takes you on safari through a world of natural beauty and adventure. You'll view the diorama of wild animals from the safety of a giant calcedra tree. You'll feel the electrifying energy of the Heartbeat of Africa show and sway to the jungle beat of the music and dance. Alex Haley, noted author of Roots, is your host for Africa Rediscovered, an adventure uncovering Africa's ancient cultural heritage. So, yeah, some of those things did end up in Animal Kingdom. That looks so similar.
Yeah, I actually, when you were in Animal Kingdom, you were pointing this out, and I was like, holy cow. Like, that is, and even the tree. I was like,
yeah, a tree.
Wait, didn't you just make a TikTok? You made a TikTok about this. Did you make a TikTok?
Yes, I did.
It was
fantastic. I didn't, thank you. I didn't point out those two specific things in a TikTok, though. That was on my live stream. But yeah, that tree that is kind of coming out of the thatched roof, that is directly in Kilimanjaro Safaris. They pretty much brought that same concept over. But there was going to be this 60-foot tall tree house that was, Imagineer John Hench complained that it was too big in scale and it needed its own theme park. Pat Burke did several size downs of the tree to try to bring it into scale for the rest of World Showcase, but it just never really fit. But that tree did help inspire the centerpiece for Disney's Animal Kingdom Park for the Tree of Life. So if you're wondering kind of where the concept of the Tree of Life came from, that is one of the major ones. And it looks like this. You can see this gigantic tree.
That's so cool.
That inspired the Tree of Life. So this, high in the branches of this giant man-made ficus tree, a wooden observation platform surrounded the upper trunk. And so from the center of the platform, guests could overlook a watering hole that was at dusk with a slightly darkened lighting added to the overall illusion. Jack Kuffer, who is a cinematographer and director who worked on several of Disney's True Life adventure films, he filmed extensive footage in Africa to use in the pavilion. Yeah, and so Kirk's showing you what this watering hole concept would have looked like.
Dude, at nighttime through the restaurant, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, we got we got the short end of the stick on this one. This should have happened.
Did. Well, it was.
I mean, I guess it kind of happens because like you go to Nomad Lounge, it's pretty awesome, but
No, but listen, this one is an immersive adventure with heat and wind and scent using Disney's Smellitizer technology and sound like running water. And so they would have had more than 100 different animal scents, including lions in heat, apparently, had been planned. And there would have been an atmosphere of drama being recreated as animals confronted each other at the watering hole as they came to bathe or drink. So the idea was to create this illusion that guests was actually in Africa and catching a glimpse of the wild animals down below. And it would have a 20-foot tall panoramic screen that would have encircled the area and 70 millimeter live action footage of wild animals that Cooper shot that would have been rear projected on it. The screen would be obscured in places by fake trees and rocks and vines, and so the fading light of dusk setting would have helped mask the fact that it was a movie. So essentially it was like this completely immersive experience, making you feel like you were inside this watering hole with these animals, which is such a cool idea.
yeah, that's awesome.
Animal scents could maybe be good or bad depending on what they are, but
I don't know. When I go on Soarin', that dirt smells awesome in the elephant scene.
well, some of it makes me think like, I wonder if some of the elephant scene was inspired by this idea because it was like these true life adventure films,
Yeah.
and it sounds so much like it. Like we can feel like we're looking down on the animals. That's exactly what we do in that, soaring around the world. So
I have a little excerpt from that 1982 book. When the African pavilion opens, visitors will be enthralled by the film sequence of the animals coming to have a drink at the jungle watering hole. And its effectiveness will be in large in part by the painstaking thoroughness that went through in planning of the shot. At the left is the layout and the bottom is the rendering of the experience itself, which just looks, I mean, they did such a nice job. And this one seems like it is the most far along in terms of concept, look, and feel for an actual physical experience. Because all the other ones, they like kind of talk about attractions. And I'm not talking about like Germany attractions. I mean, like Lego boat ride is mentioned, but you're not really seeing it. Are you kidding me?
mm-hmm.
What? Seriously? We get a bunch of drums to hit and you can get soda there. That's what we get. That's what we get. It looks so cool.
It's amazing. Yeah. So they have this, this is so well laid out. They have this massive granite rocks that says, I'm not going to say this right, kopjes, which served as a framework for an outdoor amphitheater. The rocks would rise up from a sea of grass on the veldt and the Serengeti like little heads. A rock-enclosed theater would be a natural setting for live entertainment provided by native African dancers and musicians. These, Ken Anderson said, these performers would be from many different tribes from all over Africa and would demonstrate the colorful traditions from their specific areas, and the action could be viewed from many different perspectives. So that was like a theater, rock-enclosed theater. And then there was a huge thatched dome that was the heartbeat of Africa. This was a show focusing on the rhythms and music of Africa. Ken Anderson referred to it as the rhythm show. Guests would have leaned back on replicas of huge, colorful tribal shields in a darkened room filled with instruments covering the walls and a pre-show film about the importance and history of the drum in Africa. Like, how cool is that? Like, I would love to go back.
I guess at least we get the drum. I should probably stop worrying about it because we got that.
We did get it though in Animal Kingdom. We do get a pretty big area of Africa that's dedicated to a lot.
Yeah, that Harambe section is fantastic.
Yeah,
I love. Here's a fun fact. I don't know if you know it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave you with a question, Kate. How many tree of life are there in actuality? Because we know the baobab tree. That's like the number one. But do you know that there's several other tree of life? And by the way,
several other tree of life besides like the big one.
But they're not baobab trees. There are other varietals of trees that are considered trees of life. And for different reasons. The baobab tree is known as being the tree of life because it holds water in its trunk. So elephants can actually pierce it and water will come out and they can drink it in times of drought. But there are other ones. I'll give you a hint. I'll give you one.
Okay.
Try to find the sausage tree. And the sausage tree is...
What kind of hint is that?
Well, no, it's not a hint. That's the name of it. The name of it is a sausage tree. I'm just telling you, go find the sausage.
The tree
looks
looks like a sausage.
You're gonna have to case the joint, Kate, and find it. No, so baobab tree is a tree of life, but there's many tree. I don't know. What do you type in? Tree of life, trees of life.
That's really interesting. I did know that they, with the acacia trees or whatever, that I don't know if I might have just totally butchered the name of that, but they turned like oak trees or something. They turned another kind of tree and they just like lop the top off of them so they make them look like those kinds of trees because they couldn't get them to grow in this area of Florida. So I knew that they did some like creative redesign of trees to make them look right for Animal Kingdom. I'm guessing you're looking up the tree of life.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm gonna give you a picture of the fruit, which this is the easiest way to identify the sausage tree. You got to find it in Animal Kingdom. It exists.
Wait, did they hang sausages from it? Is that
isn't? This isn't fake. This is the fruit, Kate. It's not like fake sausages. It's called the sausage tree because it looks almost like it's holding corn dogs, to be honest. But yeah. I'll do, man. I was thinking the same exact thing, man. Yeah, corn dogs. It kind of looks like that. But I don't know. Maybe. Oh, where's that place? I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, dude.
I'll keep looking for it.
See, I'm gonna put you on some history here.
I can't convince me that the tree isn't native to New Jersey.
Wait, why sausage? Wouldn't that tree be native to Illinois? Because the sausage king of Chicago, Herb Froman.
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know Herb Froman?
No, I don't know who that is. There's a couple other things that would have been in equatorial Africa. There would have been the sound safari walkthrough. So it was an African adventure through a sense of sound, walking on a meandering, overgrown footpath over a suspension bridge, and through dense jungle thickets, guests would encounter hippos, crocodiles, a herd of elephants, hyenas, wild dogs, lions, and exotic birds, but only through the sense of sound. Infrared sensors would trigger off the sounds of trumpeting elephants and grunting hippos and other African animals, also causing the foliage to move as if these animals were just beyond the sight of guests. The realism would be increased by the rustling of the upside-down baobab trees and other ambient sounds from the jungle that would have meshed with the special effects that infer the presence of animals. The climax would be a trip through the dark, cavernous lion's den during a feeding frenzy over a fresh, done away with.
Oh, yes. Sadly,
Watching what I say.
when things move on to a new season, they're done away with.
They're done away with. So that would be the sound safari, and then they would have Africa Rediscovered, which would be written and hosted by Alex Haley, the author of Roots, which is a 15-minute widescreen film presentation with a giant relief map of Africa. That film showcased the natural wonders of the flora, fauna, and climate. And the purpose of the show was to dispel the myth that Africa had always been a jungle inhabited by wild beasts, savages, and Tarzan, said Ken Anderson. So it says, the facts show that Africa has had a long and illustrious history. Wealthy empires and enlightened scholarly cities had existed there for many centuries, and there have been many times in the past when African cultures were more civilized than their European counterparts. So it sounds like they're trying to just dispel some stereotypes of African culture.
Yeah, I think that would have been exceptional. Yeah, that looks like one of the better lost pavilions.
Yeah, I have a couple notes from Tony Baxter on it. He said, we went all kinds of ways with the pavilion. When Disney owned the Tishman collection of African art, which subsequently Michael Eisner gave to the Museum of African Art at the Smithsonian, that was when...
So nice of him. Oh my gosh, that Eisner, dude, he really... I mean, to do that, like, most people would just throw it away, you know?
You probably need it for the tax write-off. That was going to be the heart of the exhibit about Africa. He says, we tried everything. And then he talks about the watering hole. This one. So he says, the concept drawings made you feel like you're really there. It also would have had a raft ride with a message. And Tony Baxter said, never give up on a good idea, right? That's what Imagineering always says. But the raft ride envisioned for Equatorial Africa resurfaced years later in Animal Kingdom as Kali River Rapids, a raft ride with an ecological message.
Yeah,
that's where we get that idea. So
but not the tiger idea that we should have gotten.
Yeah, the Tiger River Run. No, we didn't get that. But it still would have had an ecological message, so it still came from this pavilion in Epcot.
Yeah,
so a lot of Animal Kingdom came from this Equatorial Africa pavilion, which is so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that.
All
That's
right.
a great pavilion.
Should we move on?
Next.
So I don't have many other firm set countries beyond Millennium Village, which highlighted a ton of them. This is kind of my asterisk zone, because they had a lot of short-term limited exhibit in the World Showcase, like I said, around the year 2000, that displayed kind of some ideas for what we could have in Epcot at someday, sort of, kind of. It's kind of like a bunch of blue sky ideas collection. So nations on display included Chile, Easter Island, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Scotland, Sweden, Brazil, and they also had ambassadors from countries like Ethiopia, Namibia, New Zealand, Indonesia, South Africa, India, Kenya, and others. So there was a lot of kind of artisans and stuff. I don't know if we want to count these as actual nations that we're going to have. I didn't personally. But they're in there. They're worth mentioning because they were kind of around. And I do want to mention, do you have any other countries that I missed that you have on your list before okay. He's shaking his head no, for those of you who are listening.
If you're listening, I was shaking my head no.
I do have two pavilions that were Eisner ideas that were turned down by
my God. All right. I'm all ears.
One was a world religion pavilion, an Epcot pavilion about the world's religions.
Wait, did you say he turned these down?
He came up with these ideas.
Oh, he came up with these ideas. Okay.
So these were Eisner ideas that were rejected. One was a world religion pavilion. I actually literally don't have any other information other than it would have been a pavilion about world religions.
Coexist?
Yeah. And then, coexist. They would just sell those bumper stickers just everywhere. Then the other one is an American industry pavilion. So delving into the world of factories and how items are made would have been another one. So I don't know if that one in particular might have been more Future World.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems more Future World than World Showcase.
Yeah, World Religion seems more like maybe World Showcase, but American industry. So those were failed ideas that didn't get any ground.
So is Equatorial Africa a failed Imagineer? So why would you phrase it like that? I don't like how you do this. It's just it didn't happen. It was an idea that didn't happen. Failed. As if the world's. How many parks did he open, Kate?
He wanted to name Splash Mountain Splash and put a mermaid in it because of the movie, because he wanted to tie everything back to the movie. And we didn't get the excavator ride because he wanted to have Dinosaur, because he wanted to tie it back to the movie Dinosaur, because he thought it was such a success. We could have had an excavator roller coaster in Dinosaur Land, Dinoland USA.
We have Everest, and Dinosaur as a dark ride is fantastic. What are we arguing about?
Not as cool as the excavator would have been, just saying.
Yeah, I mean, that did look cool. I mean, maybe they'll build it. Maybe they'll build it there.
Anyway, I think that is about all I've got on the countries that were lost in Epcot. I have lots on the rides that were.
Yeah, that's a whole other show, and I don't even know if we could do. I feel like we would maybe have to pair up countries, because I don't think you could do all of them. Japan probably can be its own episode because of how much was lost there, but Germany, among others.
Brazil. Brazil was one too. I just forgot it on my list. But this is Brazil. So this is the only thing I have on Brazil.
The cheese bread. It would have been nothing but cheese bread.
I don't like the cheese bread as much as I thought I would.
I think the cheese bread tastes like Play-Doh and boogers. It's gross. It's weird. I don't like it. It's like weird consistency. The cheese, if you want to get good cheese bread, go to Skipper Canteen. Their version of the same exact dish that you get in Food and Wine is so much better in there. Also, I don't like their cachaça. Like they make a cachaça cocktail and it tastes like vinegary. I'm like, I don't know what is going on with Brazil, but none of these things taste like they should. Like if you're going to have like a caipirinha with cachaça, like it's an easy cocktail. It's like almost like a South American mojito kind of vibe. And I don't know, it tasted like soy sauce and vinegar.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
That's
Plus.
Well, that's all I got for all the countries. There's a lot of countries. Next. There's no next.
Well,
that's all.
Try it up.
Unless you have another one. I've got nothing else. I think it's plenty.
I've got nothing.
It's like 18, 19, maybe 20, like, and a handful.
Yeah, but you're including that whole entire, you can't count the millennium.
It wasn't counted. That was without the millennium ones. Because, like, I have Brazil as like its own little, like, thing.
All right, ready? Just for fun. It can be one of the ones that we lost or a new one. What would you pick and one sentence why? If you could add anything for you right now.
I really want Australia. I want the Opera House.
Okay. I would take India because it is the second largest population and the cuisine is fantastic.
What? I thought we were picking out ones that we just talked about.
No, I just said...
It's like making up your own.
No, I said I defined the rules of the game. The rules of the game were you can pick from the lost ones or you can just pick anyone. Fine.
I was going to pick a lost one. I haven't had dinner yet.
Well, if I'm going to pick from the lost ones, it's going to be Equatorial Africa. That one is fantastic.
Well, yeah, like... Obviously.
No, you picked Sydney Opera.
No. Okay, no. Okay. I changed my mind. I retract. I redact it. I redact my statement. I'm going to say Switzerland because I want the Matterhorn in Epcot.
Well, they won't get the flag right, so don't worry.
You're going to have the Swedish flag on there?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Distory as we talk about all the countries we didn't get at Epcot, although maybe someday we will. Who knows? We'll see what time will tell which countries we do get. We hope that you enjoyed this virtual walk around the world that we lost. And had a little bit of fun with us as we went on a few rabbit trails. So, Kirk, any final thoughts about our lost countries of Epcot?
India. Why was it never, ever brought up? This ridiculous.
Proposed.
It's not even like to discuss. Like, you could have it tomorrow, you know?
Oh, my goodness. Well, we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always. And we will see you. We don't know what we're doing next week, but it'll be something. And we're not going in a series yet. I think we're sticking with some shorter topics for a little while.
Insert shrug emoji. When you ask me later on this week, what are we doing on Friday?
That's it. Yep.
I was doing the shrug emoji motion that you can get as an emoticon in your keyboard for those that are listening.
Alrighty. I'm gonna call it. Thank you, Kirk, for joining me as always for this episode of Distory. And thank you, everybody, all of us, all of you watching and listening. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And we know you have options when you listen to podcasts and who you get to hang out and watch. And we really appreciate all of you taking the time to be with us. It means a lot to us. So with that, I'm going to say goodnight.
Next.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.